إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So we continue our presentation on Zakah, and as we said in this video, inshallah ta'ala, we will continue with the topic about wealth gain during the year. As we did the zakat of money, and we said that you calculate the nisab knowing you calculate the nisab by using the price of gold, and if you have that amount of money or more, then zakat will be due upon your wealth. And we mentioned that gold and money, they will take the same ruling because they're considered the same thing, since we are using the price of gold for money. So gold will be considered, money will be considered gold. So now someone have, for example, $9,000 at the beginning of the year, and then he gained money during the year. How is it? Should he pay zakat on those extra money? Now, before dealing with wealth earned or gained during the year, there are two things we must take into consideration. Firstly, is when determining the nisab, all of one's wealth of the same type is taken into consideration, no matter when or how it is earned or gained. Now, what we mean here by the wealth of the same type, meaning it has the same nisab. In other words, same type meaning it has the same nisab. So for example, gold, silver, and things that you buy, things that you have in your shop to sell, they are all of the same type, because they have the same nisab of 4,675 if we are using the price of gold currently. And that is going to be the nisab. All the examples that we're going to give is going to be based on that nisab. So if it happened that I don't mention, like for example here, I mean, for example, using nisab at 4,675, just know that throughout this presentation, that is the nisab that we will be using for all of the examples. So when you want now, if you're going to consider if you have the nisab or not, remember the nisab is in other words, to determine whether you are rich or you are poor, in other words. So you can't look at one or two of your wealth. A person is rich, you look at your entire wealth. That is one. The second thing you have to remember, or the second thing you have to take into consideration, is that the year is counted from the first time your general wealth of the same type reaches the nisab. And any additional wealth will either follow that year or be counted from its own time gain. And we will explain that. So you will look at your entire wealth, right? You have $2,000 cash, you have 90 grams of gold, you have some items you are selling, and we will deal with things that are selling. You have to look at your entire wealth to see if you reach the nisab. And if you reach the nisab, from the time you reach the nisab, that is when you're going to start counting your first year. So for example, if someone has $100 in Muharram, right? So $100, he has $100 in Muharram. He doesn't have any other money. This is an example. So $100 in Muharram, there's no need to write down that the year because you don't have nisab. Then in Safar, he received a gift, a $900 gift. So $100 plus $900, he has $1,000 now. Still no nisab, no need to start counting the year. Then in Rajab, he started to work, right? Maybe $100 in Muharram, he just finished school. His father gave him $100 tip. Maybe he topped the school, he get $900 a gift. He started to work now. He started to work and he gained $3,000. Big job. So in Rajab, he gained $3,000. So how much we have so far? We have 100, 900, 1,000, 3,000 plus 3,000. So far, he has 4,000. Still, no nisab. He's below the nisab. Then in Ramadan, he worked for another $1,000. Now he has 5,000 in altogether. Now remember, this is just an example. Don't ask if he's spending, if he's buying grocery or anything. We're just giving an example. Now, in Ramadan, he worked for another $1,000. So now in Ramadan, now his total wealth, everything now that he works for is $5,000. So his year will begin from Ramadan because that is when he reached the nisab of $5,000. So he make a note that in Ramadan, his wealth reached $5,000. If the next year Ramadan reach and he still has this 5,000, it didn't drop below the nisab, which is 4,675, he has to pay zakat. Let's say he spent all the money before next year. There's no zakat on him. Or let's say he spent $3,000. So he only has 2,000 remaining, there is no zakat because the money dropped below the nisab. But so long as the nisab remain for the entire year, he has to pay zakah. Now, regarding any additional wealth, so now he has $5,000, right? He has $5,000. This is when the year starts. So now, when we are talking about additional wealth, we are talking about additional wealth from that year that you start to count your wealth. So now, how is the zakah determined? If the additional wealth is a direct produce of the original wealth, such as gaining a profit, then the year of the profit is the same as the year of the original wealth. Pay attention. There are other examples how the wealth can be the direct produce. For example, when you're dealing with the zakat of cattle, like for example, you had 40 sheep and one of them give birth, it's a direct produce of the original wealth. But we are dealing with money, so we're only going to give examples with money. So for example, someone has $5,000 in Muharram, then he invests in this $5,000. Right? He invests in this $5,000 and he gain a profit of $4,000 in Rajab. Right? Now, $4,000 in Rajab. He will have to pay zakat on the full $9,000 when the following Muharram reach. Even though the 4,000, he gained it in Rajab as a profit, but because it's a direct produce of this 5,000, it's a profit. It came from as a result of this 5,000. It came from this 5,000. Right? He invests in this 5,000 and he gain 4,000 extra as profit, then total of $9,000 at the end of the year. Then he will have to pay zakat on the $9,000 when Muharram reach, when the year of the first original money, the Ra's al-Mal, the capital money, when that reach, when the year of that money, that is where you pay the zakat. So you just divide 9,000 by 40. The answer you get, that is where you give into the poor. Now, that is if it is a direct produce. Now, if it is not a direct produce, if it is not a direct result from that wealth, what is it? How should you pay the zakat? Now, if the original wealth reaches nisab, right? So you have the original wealth reaches nisab, and the additional wealth is of the same type, but not a direct produce of the original wealth. So we have $5,000, right? This $5,000 nisab. The additional wealth is of the same type, meaning, remember same type, we said same type of wealth, meaning it based on the same nisab. So you have $5,000 and you gain some more money. Or you have $5,000 and you gain some gold. Now, if you gain silver, that's a different story, different type. The silver has own nisab. So need to focus. So if the original wealth reaches the nisab and the additional wealth, right? The original wealth reaches the nisab and the additional wealth is of the same type, but not a direct produce. Remember we said if it's a direct produce, it carries the same year. But if it is not, then what you do? Then the additional wealth will carry its own year count, right? The additional wealth will carry its own year count. Let's take an example. So someone has $5,000 in Sha'ban, right? $5,000 in Sha'ban. He has the nisab. Then in Ramadan, he worked for $500. So now he gained. It's not a direct produce. $5,000. Now you work. This $500 comes from a different input. Has nothing to do with that 5,000. In Ramadan, he worked for $500. And this scenario is the scenario of most of us. Most people, your paycheck is different, is a different origin. It takes the ruling of a different origin from the original wealth. So every time you receive a paycheck, in reality, each paycheck, if you're in this situation where you receive a paycheck and your original money now is over the nisab, then you will be in this category. Because each paycheck is not a produce of the previous paycheck. Even if you're working for the same job, yes, but that first paycheck has nothing to do with it. The second paycheck, has nothing to do with the first paycheck. It's not a profit you're gaining. It's a different thing. You work again and you get paid again. So we said the person has 5,000 in Sha'ban. Then in Ramadan, he worked for $500. Then in Zulhijjah, he was given $6,000 as a gift, right? Now, here he worked, here he get a gift, different. So all is different input. His original wealth over nisab has nothing to do, and the extra wealth he gained during the year is not a direct produce of the original wealth. Now, the zakat for the 5,000 will be due when its year is over. So when Sha'ban reach, you pay the zakat of 5,000. And the zakat of the 500 when its year is over. When $500, when Ramadan reach, you're going to pay the zakat for the 500. And the zakat of the $6,000 when its year is over. This is with regards to the obligation. The zakat of the 5,000 will become obligatory when Sha'ban reach. The zakat of the 500 will become obligatory when Ramadan reach. And the zakat of the 6,000 will become obligatory when Dhul Hijjah reach. When each one is going to become obligatory when its year is over. No, but if the person wants to pay all of the zakat at once, he can do so at the earliest year. That is at Sha'ban in the example. So now, especially with people with their paycheck, if every paycheck you receive, you got to write down. Now, somebody who's working taxi, worse yet, every time you collect money, every day you collect money, you got to write down, okay, today I collect so much money. Next year, the next day, you got to write down, especially working taxi. So today, Monday, Sunday the 21st, I work taxi, collect $500. Monday the 22nd, I collect $600. Tuesday the 23rd, I only have $60. I only work for $60. Each day, each amount, each day, you got to note each date. Now that's going to be difficult. So what you do to make it easy, when the year of the first zakat is due, I mean the date of the first zakat is due. So the zakat for the $5,000, this is the first in Sha'ban. Someone has $5,000 in Sha'ban. This is when his nisab his wealth reached the nisab for the first time was in Sha'ban. So what you can do, you can pay the zakat of all your wealth in the time of Sha'ban. It is permissible to pay your zakat before, but you can't pay it after. So you can't pay the zakat of this 5,000 in Zulhijjah time when the zakat of 6,000 is due. That's why I said in Sha'ban the zakat of the 5,000 become compulsory, obligatory upon you. In Ramadan, the zakat for the 500 is going to become obligatory upon you. It's going to become at that time you have to pay it, but you can pay it before the time. So make things easy for yourself. What you can do when the time to pay the zakat for the 5,000, which is the first zakat due in your wealth, just add up all of your wealth that you have and make one thing, pay one zakat. And that's the easiest thing to do, especially for people who are receiving weekly payments and receiving monthly payments. It's going to be very difficult for you to keep noting when is your zakat, when is your keep noting the amount for the zakat for each payment. Or if you're working taxi, for example, every day you're going it's by the time the next year reach, you're going to end up paying zakat every single day of your life. So to make things easy, just one day in the year, the first day that zakat is obligatory upon you, that your first set of wealth of the same type reach the nisab, you just pay the zakat, calculate the zakat of your entire wealth. And then when the next year reach, you do the same thing at the same time. So now, and one thing to note that the $500 is due for zakat, even though it is less than the nisab, because his overall wealth has reached the nisab. Now remember, we said if the original wealth reaches the nisab, right? Now once in our nisab is to determine whether or not you're rich or poor. In other words, rich or poor in the definition of zakat. In definition of zakat, you're rich if you have the nisab, you're poor if you're less than the nisab, with regards to zakat and nisab, not with regards to whether or not you can gain the nisab, but we're just using a terminology to make it easy to understand. So when you're determining whether you're rich or poor, meaning whether you have the nisab or not, you look at your overall wealth. And remember, we say, in order for zakat to be compulsory, amongst the conditions, there's two conditions that has to be met. You have to have the nisab. You as an individual has to have the nisab. So that one. And the second thing is that the wealth has to be with you for one entire year. So now the $500, right? Zakat is due because you have the nisab. The nisab is already there. You don't need a nisab specifically for the 500 and nisab. Then in that case, nobody will pay zakat because a lot of the paycheck is below. Like for example, the nisab is 4,675. 4,600. Imagine someone who's collecting a weekly paycheck, and over the year he's gaining thousands of dollars. A weekly paycheck, and by the time at the end of the year he has $100,000, for example, he's not going to collect a paycheck as big as 4,675. So when it comes to the nisab, you look at your entire wealth. But when it comes to the individual wealth, as you gain it, each wealth, their zakat will become compulsory when that wealth year reach. Because if the year for the 500 has not reached as yet, then there will be no need for you to it is not compulsory, sorry. If the year of the 500 is not compulsory, but to make things easy for you, you pay it with the original zakat. Okay. And as I said, anything that is unclear, if you want any clarification, inshallah, write down your questions. We will provide an email at the end of the dars or the end or in the middle somewhere in the dars for you to send any question. And for those who follow the dars, you can also have a copy of the PDF, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Also know that gold and money and sales item are considered one type, as we mentioned. So the nisab of one is considered for the other, as we said. So for example, using nisab at 4,675, someone has $5,000 in Shaban, right? So he has the nisab. The first time his wealth reached nisab was in Shaban, and he gained, and his wealth is $5,000. Then in Dhul Hijjah, he was given 70 grams of gold, right? He will have to pay zakat on the gold after its year. So remember, 70 grams of gold by itself is not nisab. Nisab for gold itself, nisab for gold is what? 85 grams. But the gold, okay, where did you end it? Yes. So the 70 grams of gold within itself, this if you look at the 70 grams by itself, it doesn't reach nisab, as nisab of gold is 85 grams. But your wealth already has nisab. You already have $5,000, so you don't need another nisab. Each well doesn't need another nisab so long as it is the same type. So he will have to pay the zakat of the gold after it's whensoever Dhul Hijjah reach, you have to pay zakat of the gold because your wealth has nisab. But this gold, so when Sha'ban reach, you pay the zakat of the 5,000 because that is when the year finished for the 5,000. And when Dhul Hijjah reach, you will have to pay the zakat of the 70 grams because that is when its year is going to finish. Or, as we said, you can just make one thing and calculate the nisab of the gold and the 5,000 in Sha'ban and make one payment instead of keep paying every time each set of wealth reach its year. Now, so we did the additional wealth. If it's if it is a produce of the original wealth, the additional wealth is not a produce, but it is the same. It is the same type of the original wealth, and the original wealth had already reached nisab. If the additional wealth is of a different type, then the original wealth, if the additional wealth is of a different type than the original wealth, then it will take its own ruling regarding nisab and year count using the same principles mentioned before. So for example, someone has $5,000 in Sha'ban, right? And in Ramadan, he was given 400 grams of silver. And we know the nisab of silver is 595 grams. So now at the end of the year, when Sha'ban reach again, he will just have to pay zakat on the 5,000. And no zakat is due on the silver. Even when Ramadan reached, he doesn't have to pay any zakat on silver because he had a previous zakat. Because this wealthy now, this silver is a different type. It has its own nisab. So no zakat is due on the silver because its nisab is 595 grams. Now, if in Ramadan, let's say now in Ramadan, he was given 400 grams of silver, no zakat is due. And then let's say in Dhul Hijjah, he was given 200 grams of silver. In other words, he has a total of 600 grams of silver. Now he got to start counting the year for the silver in Dhul Hijjah because that is when the silver reached the nisab. So if additional wealth is of a different type, you look at that wealth separately with regards to nisab and with regards to the amount due and counting the year and everything. You look at that wealth by itself if it is of a different type. So in general, the wealth that we are dealing with in this presentation, you have gold, money, and things that you buy and sell, things that you are selling, and we will deal with that, inshallah. That is one type, and silver is another type. Now, just for the benefit, let's say someone was using silver now to calculate his nisab. Then the same type for him is going to be money, silver, and the things that he sells is going to be one type, and gold is going to end up being the other type of wealth. So someone who was using silver to calculate his nisab, since silver, you're using silver, the money is going to take the ruling of the silver. The things that you sell is going to take the ruling of the silver because when you buy and sell, you're actually is money. Buying and selling, you're gaining money. So the buying and selling takes the ruling of the money, which takes the ruling of the silver. So all of that is going to end up being one type. But since we are using gold, money, items that you sell, they are all one type. And silver is its own type, own nisab, its own year count, has nothing to do with your other wealth. Okay, random issues pertaining to zakah. All right, the zakat of gold and silver jewelry. Now, there are three types of gold and silver jewelry. When we're talking about jewelry, gold and silver jewelry. If it's any other type of jewelry, rubies, pearls, diamonds, whatever other type, there's no zakat due on them. Gold and silver jewelry. Now, there are three types of gold and silver jewelry, and this is very important to differentiate so that there won't be any confusion, especially when we're going to mention a difference of opinion. You have some people, they store up gold and silver. The main purpose is for the preservation of wealth. Every time they get some money, they buy gold, not because they want to wear it. Their main purpose is to preserve the wealth. They want to buy gold, so that is going to preserve the wealth. If the gold price increase, they might sell it and get back money. They want to preserve it, use it to preserve the wealth, or it is from their wealth, not for the purpose of beautification. That is the main purpose. Let's say, okay, you see gold is selling cheap, so you buy your wife, for example. Your wife, for example, she see that gold is selling cheap and she have some money. So what she do, she buy a set of bundles, gold bundles. As you know, men can't use gold bundles, can't wear gold in the first place. So she buy a set of gold bundles, right? And the purpose, she doesn't want to wear this gold. Her purpose for buying it is not to wear the bundles, it's to preserve her wealth. If she see the gold price raise, she sell it back and get more money. Now that kind of goal that the purpose is to preserve your wealth, whether you buy it in that form of jewelry, sorry. If the gold and the silver and so is not jewelry, you have to pay zakat on those if it is not jewelry, as we did before. Gold and silver that is not jewelry, you have to pay zakat. That is wealth. Gold bars, you have gold coins, you have gold powder, whatever gold you have. That is the gold and silver that we were dealing before. But now we're dealing specifically jewelry, gold and silver jewelry. So now she buy some gold bundles in order to preserve her wealth. That is her main purpose. If it happened that she wear it sometime or not, that doesn't affect the ruling. The main fact is that the main purpose for her buying the bundles is to preserve her wealth. If she see the price increase, she buy it, or she want to preserve this wealth for her children or whatsoever. That type of jewelry is, you have to pay zakat. Okay, it's money you get. Is the money you have there. Zakat is due by the consensus of scholars. No difference of opinions that you have to pay zakat on those types of jewelry. Second, haram jewelry. Haram jewelry, for example, a man, he buy a gold bundle to wear or a gold chain, right? A man, he buy a gold bundle to wear or a gold chain, and we know that gold is haram for men to wear and boys to wear. So that gold, it's considered gold. It's not considered jewelry. Or a woman, she buy a gold necklace that has an elephant on it, or she buy a gold ornament that is in the shape of a pig or a statue. As we know that statues are haram in Islam. So those are haram jewelry. And haram jewelry, they are not considered jewelry. They are considered gold. Remember, we're talking about gold and silver. So haram jewelry, gold for men, or jewelry in the shape of animals or humans, whether it is gold or silver, they are considered haram jewelry. And when it comes to the ruling, you look at it as at what it is made of. It is made of gold, it is gold. So those type of jewelry too, zakat is due by the consensus of scholars without any difference of opinion. So a woman, she buy, for example, a gold bundle in the shape of an elephant to wear. That is not considered bundle, it's considered gold, because that bundle is not permissible for you to wear. So it's gold. You have to pay zakat on it. Now, the third type of jewelry. The third type of jewelry are those used for personal use and beautification. A woman, she buy chain or a bundle or a necklace, a gold bundle or a silver bundle or a silver necklace for her personal beautification, her personal use. Now, this here is what you have the difference of opinion. So a lot of time you hear the scholars have difference of opinion with regards to gold and silver jewelry. That is not a general statement. It's not a what you call it, is not for all of the jewelry. If it is for the purpose of preservation of wealth and you just want to save your wealth, or if it is haram jewelry, there's no difference. The difference is with regards to those gold and silver jewelry that is permissible to use, meaning it is not haram, meaning a man, he has a silver ring, a woman, she has her gold or silver jewelry that is not in the shape of animals or human beings, and she are using it as beautification or for personal use. That is what you have the difference of opinion and a lot of debate. But the majority of the scholars, and inshallah it is the most correct, they say most correct view, and it is the preferred view. The majority of the scholars, they are of the view that you do not have to pay any zakat on those jewelry, and that is the preferred view, inshallah ta'ala. And as we said, it is the scholars, they have difference of opinions and there's a lot of debate. But the reason why I choose this view as the preferred view, and also it is the view of the majority of scholars, and having the majority of scholars taking a view is one of the indication also that the view most likely is the most correct view, is because if you were to look into the general principles of zakah, you find that zakah is not due on anything that a person use, his general wealth, his car, his, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, your horses and your donkeys that you use, and any of your general, your house, your car, your clothing, your shoes, anything of personal use that you are in need of for your day-to-day life, and your use for your day-to-day life, there's no zakat due on those clothing. Secondly, jewelry is something that was very famous in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Many of the wives of the companions, even though the companions, they were generally poor, and you find that today too, not because someone is poor doesn't mean they don't have jewelry. Many people, they are poor, but they have very expensive jewelry. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is no straightforward, authentic hadith that is not disagreed upon, meaning there is no hadith that the scholars agreed upon that it is authentic, where the Prophet ﷺ told his companions to pay zakat on jewelry, even though it was something very well known, very common, and something that is very common, the Prophet ﷺ will be eager to inform you about, as you find with anything that is common, the ruling of eating and drinking, what breaks your wudu, all of those things the Prophet ﷺ make very clear, because they're everyday, day-to-day things that needs to be clarified. And many of the companions, they have the view, including the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, like Aisha radiallahu anha, they were of the view that there is no zakat on jewelry, and the wives of the Prophet ﷺ especially, they will know of this ruling, because jewelry are more specific for the woman. So they will they will have been forced to know whether or not you have to pay zakah on jewelry. And with regards to the hadith, there are a few hadith that mention the obligation of, or indicate the obligation of zakat on jewelry, but they are not straightforward. That's one. And the second thing is that those hadith, majority of the scholars of hadith, they are on the view that those hadiths are weak. You have difference of opinion whether they are weak or strong. But if you look, all of those hadith that mention jewelry, majority of the scholars of hadith, they are of the view that those hadith are weak. And as I said, something as common as jewelry, the Prophet ﷺ would have made it clear. And you cannot count jewelry and say that it takes the general ruling of gold and silver, because it is not like gold and silver. And one of the strongest evidence also that gold and silver jewelry doesn't take the general ruling of gold and silver is because all of the wording of the Prophet ﷺ, where he mentioned the zakat of gold and silver, the wording used in those hadith, they are not referred to jewelry. They are referred to the gold and silver coins, or what is used for buying and selling. And jewelry is not included in that wording, as the scholars who support this view, which is the majority of the scholars, they mention. And I went into a little details in explaining some of the evidence with this, because it is something that is very, there's a lot of debate concerning it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows best. Now, is zakat due on jewelry other than gold and silver? As we mentioned, no zakat is due on jewelry other than gold and silver by the consensus of the scholars. There's no difference of opinion regarding that. Delaying the zakah. Zakah has to be paid from the time it is due. That is at the end of the year, when the year is end, when the year is over, and cannot be delayed without any valid reason. So when the year of each wealth that reach the nisab, you have your nisab, your wealth in general reach the nisab, and the year of each wealth is reached, you have to pay the zakat on that wealth, and you cannot delay it. You can pay it before, as we mentioned, to make it easy for yourself. You can just add up all your wealth and pay it at the first year, meaning the first due date that you have for your first set of wealth, and just pay one zakat, but you can't delay it unless there is a valid reason for delaying your wealth. For example, you're out of your country and it happened at the time for the zakat reached, and there's no one for you, no one that you can that can access your wealth, or you cannot access your wealth, or one other ways, or another reason that some of the scholars they mention, permissible reason for delaying the zakah, is, for example, if giving all the zakat at once is going to lead to defeat the purpose of the zakat. So, for example, you have a poor person who is in need of zakah. If you give him all the zakat, he's going to waste it out in 1 month. But you gradually give him the zakat over a period of time, so he doesn't waste out the money if he sees a large sum of money. But the best thing to do in that case is to pay the zakat early. So, for example, you know the zakat is going to due in Ramadan. Start, and you want to distribute it to a single person in pieces or in parts. Start from early. Start from Muharram. Start from before, and start giving him each month, giving him a portion. So by the time that Ramadan reach, by the time the due date for zakat reach, you give out all your zakat on time, and that is the best solution, inshallah ta'ala. The intention of zakah must precede the zakah. you have to give, when you give that wealth, your intention must be that it is zakah. So for example, someone gives general charity. So you give somebody $1,000, then you go home and you realize that you had to give $1,000 in zakah. Say, okay, I'm going to make that zakah. That is not going to consider zakat because there were no preceding intentions. You have to give, the intention has to precede it. When you give, that is zakah. You can't give general charity and then want to flip it to zakah. Is it permissible to give someone or organization to distribute their zakah? It is permissible to authorize someone in distributing your zakah. That is what they call tawqil. Now, I didn't mention evidence or the scholars from some of these things because there's almost no difference of opinion, or there's no difference of opinion with these things. Should the debt you owe be deducted from your wealth when calculating zakah? Now, so you have $5,000, right? And you owe somebody $3,000, and the time of zakah reach. Should you take out the $3,000 and don't count it in your wealth? In other words, you only have $2,000 left, so there's no zakah due. Or let's say you have $9,000 and you owe $2,000. Should you minus the 2,000 and only pay zakah on the 7,000, which is still above the nisab? The answer, the zakah has to be calculated from the total wealth you have, whether or not you owe a debt. So when the time of zakah reach, right, the year reach for the wealth, everything that you have to pay. Once the year clocked in, you have to pay zakah on everything, whether you owe a debt or not. Now, you might say that is going to cause you difficulty. What you can do, but you can always pay off your debt before the due date of zakah reach, and then pay your zakah and what's remaining if it is still above the nisab. So let's say you have $5,000. Before the year reach for that $5,000 with you, pay your debt off, so there won't be any zakah that you have to pay, or you won't be in a loss that you don't have any money now to pay your debt. Or if you have $9,000 and $2,000 is due in debt, pay off your $2,000, and when the year reach, you just have $7,000 to pay your zakat from. And this is the view of Imam Shafi, Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, Sheikh Sulaiman al-Ruhaili. And I mentioned that this is the view of these scholars because there are other views. And the reason, and this is the safest view, because if you really want to pay the debt off, you're going to pay it off. You're not going to wait until the year of zakat, because people, what they do, they're going to use the debt as a trick to not pay their zakah. So every time the year comes, they said we have debt, they minus it, no zakat is due. So if you really want to pay off your debt, you're going to pay off your debt and not wait until the year reach for your zakah. Should you pay zakah on the wealth people owes you? All right, this the first one. Now you owe someone. The second one, someone owe you. So let's say you have $5,000 and someone owe you $1,000. So in other words, you have $6,000. You own $6,000, but $5,000 is with you, and $1,000 is you lend someone $1,000. So this $1,000, when you're paying a zakat, should you include it since it's your money originally, or should you not include it? If the wealth is being borrowed by for a number of years, or being borrowed by someone who can't repay easily, or by someone who keeps delaying the payment, then zakat is paid on the wealth whenever it is collected for one past year. So let's go over this. Give an example. So now you have $6,000 originally. Someone come and you lend them $1,000, and you say, okay, pay me back this after 2 years, for a number of years. It has been borrowed for a number of years. So the person borrowed at $1,000 for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Or The person who borrowed that money, he's a poor person. You don't have any clue when he's going to pay back. Or by someone who can't repay easily. You lend that money to a poor person, he might give you back after a year, after 2 years. You don't know when he's going to give you back. It's not easy for him to pay back. Or by someone who keeps delaying. The money is borrowed by somebody. He's rich, but he likes to delay. He don't want to pay back. So you don't know when he's going to pay back. So that one, what you do, you pay your zakat on your 5,000. Whenever you regain that 6,000, whenever you gain, you just pay it for 1 year. So let's say the person gave you back the 6,000. The person gave you back that 1,000 after 10 years. You just pay the zakat of one past year, the last year, from the date you receive the money. Now, if the wealth is being borrowed by someone who is willing to repay, anytime you want it, you can collect it. Then you have to pay the zakat for that wealth every year. Or when you collect it, you pay for all the previous years. So the difference, now you lend someone $1,000. And this, anytime you want, you can say, brother, I need back my $1,000. He's going to give you back in a day or two or the same day. Meaning the wealth is readily available. You can get it whenever. You have to pay the zakat for that wealth every year. So let's say somebody borrowed the money from you, $1,000. Anytime you want it, you can get it back. But it happened that money remained with that person for 5 years. You have to pay it every year. You have to include that money in your zakat. Or when you collect that money, you paid the zakat equivalent for the last 5 years. Because that money is like money you have in your hand. You have the ability you have the control over the money. As we mentioned, one of the conditions for the zakat to be obligatory is full ownership and control. In this one here, you don't have full control. You don't have full control. This one here, you have full control of the wealth. You can collect it anytime you want and do whatever you want with it. And this is the this is the view of Sheikh Mohammed Saleh Uthaymeen, and this is the fatwa issue by the Lajna ad-Da'imah, the Permanent Committee for Scholarly Research and Ifta, and issuing fatwa by in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Okay, zakat of sales item. So we will stop here, inshallah, and take a break, and then we will continue with the zakat of sales items and relating issues, inshallah ta'ala. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.